I'm the Criminal Investigations Lieutenant for the Baytown Police Department and also the Public Information Officer.
Tell us what happened down here tonight.
About 10:40 this evening, one of our patrol officers was patrolling the area of the apartment complex behind us, came across a 45-year-old female who he knows from prior dealings, knows that the female had some warrants. The officer contacted the female, attempted to effect an arrest. During the course of attempting to effect that arrest, the female began struggling with the officer, which forced the officer to deploy his taser. That deployment was not effective. The female was able to get the officer's taser away from him and actually tase the officer, which forced the officer to draw his duty weapon and fire multiple rounds at the suspect, who was struck at least one time and was pronounced deceased here at the scene. We're still very early on in our investigation. I don't have a lot of details other than that, other than to say that the officer is an 11-year veteran with the Baytown Police Department. As far as I know, this is the first shooting that he's been involved in. So as you can imagine, we'll be out here for some time tonight trying to reconstruct the events that took place, to try to get all the questions answered that we need to.
And are you releasing his name at this time?
Not at this moment, we're not. Like I say, we're still very early on in the investigation, and out of respect for the officer and his family. We're not releasing his name, and likewise for the family of the deceased. We're not releasing her name just yet. We want to make sure that all the appropriate family members and people are notified before we do that. Just out of respect to them.
Do we know where she was shot?
No, sir, I do. Those things I just don't know yet. Like I said earlier, we're very early on in the investigation. Some of those details we won't know until after the ME gets here and we can actually move the body and just try to start making those determinations.
Was the officer injured or transported?
The only injury that, as far as I know, that he sustained was from the taser itself. The extent of that I don't know. Keep in mind those tasers are about 50,000 volts, so that they don't feel good.
So was he taken to the hospital, can you say? Or?
That I do not know. I don't believe he was. He wasn't injured to the extent that he needed to go to the hospital. But like I say, if you've ever been struck with a taser, it's a very painful experience. So there was, I'm sure, a great deal of pain involved there when he was struck with it.
Has the DA's office been notified?
Yes, the DA's office, their shoot team has been notified, which is a normal protocol. They are on scene along with my homicide detectives, again starting to conduct their investigation. And a lot of these questions that you're asking, we're hoping to be able to uncover during the course of the investigation. We will probably be here for the better part of tonight trying to do that.
Was she a resident here at the apartment complex?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe she was.
And he just saw her in the parking lot, I guess?
That's my understanding. Again, some of those fine details we're going to hopefully be able to get answered through our investigation. I do know that he was familiar with her from past dealings. This is his normal area that he patrols, and it's very common for our officers to patrol through the apartment complexes at night looking for crime. So I'm not sure if he just came across her at the parking lot and contacted her or how that exactly transpired. But again, those are things that we're hoping to be able to get answered, throughout the course of our investigation. Again, it's a tragic event for everybody involved. So of course, our hearts go out to the families of the deceased, as well as our officer. Again, we want to make sure that we get all the questions answered that we can throughout the course of the investigation.
When do you expect to release the names?
Mark, it will probably be later on this morning. Again, I want to make sure that everybody that needs to be notified is notified, so that nobody gets blindsided by that information.
I know y'all have had a lot of activity at this complex in the last month or so. Is this related to any of the ongoing?
That I can't really speak to at this point without going back and doing a review of all the calls that took place over here.
Okay.
So real quick, how's the officer doing other than the taser deployment?
Shook up. These incidents are traumatic for the officer as well. They really are. We never want to have to resort to this. We never want things to get to this point where an officer has to take somebody's life. It's very traumatic for the officer as well. But he shook up, but he's doing okay.
the officer has a body cam, do you believe?
My understanding is yes. Obviously, that's part of our investigation, so we're not going to be releasing that just yet either. So,
Care to comment on the Snapchat video that's out there of the shooting itself?
yeah, I'm aware of it. I know that that's been posted on social media. Obviously, we would like to talk to the person that videoed that. They're a witness. So if whoever that is, if they want to contact us, we'd love to talk to them. It's unfortunate that somebody takes a tragic incident like this and starts posting it on social media. It's extremely disrespectful for everybody involved. But that's the day and age we live in with social media.
And with regard to policy, I mean, obviously, using lethal force is an absolute last resort, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And you guys have pretty tight procedures regarding that.
Yes.
Generally speaking, can you talk to that?
Well, again, there's limited circumstances where we're, where we are empowered to take somebody's life. That's the preservation of our life or the life of a third party. Again, in this incident, what our the preliminary investigation is telling us is that our officer got tased with his own taser, and that's not one of those things that you want to go hands-on with somebody with. If somebody's tasing you with takes your taser away from you and starts tasing you, there's a very good likelihood that it's going to escalate and get very, very bad for the officer from there. So, again, these are things that kind of force the officers to take action for their own safety. So it's unfortunate, but it looks like it's necessary.
Was the woman a resident of this complex?
I believe so.
Do you know if there's any surveillance cameras in the apartment complex?
That I do not know. Again, that'll be part of our investigation as well. Again, as these things unfold, the most important thing for us is that we gather all the facts and get all the details put forth. Ultimately what will happen is the district attorney's office will review the shooting, obviously, but we'll also review it internally to make sure that policies were followed.
Can I have you give us your name one more time, please?
Lieutenant Steve Doris, last name Dorris.